Hi everyone, it's Susan. I've got a fun technique to share with you today. It's a bit of a long video, so let's just jump right in and get started. A few years back, I made this card, and it's one of my favorites. I'm going to make it again, and what I used was the Penny Black Berry Kissed stamp. It's just gorgeous. You're going to need a stamp positioning tool for this technique. Without one, it really can't be done. So if you have one, that's great. But if not, you know what? Christmas is coming soon. Maybe you could ask for one. So the stamp itself, it's got the image on the back, which is great because you can see the shading on there. And on the front, it's not the easiest to see, so I recommend keeping this handy. So I've got a piece of watercolor paper. I've removed, it comes with a sponge for clear, so you have if you're using clear stamps, there's no gap because it's got a bit of a dip there. Anyways, remove that. I put in a piece of watercolor paper that's, I think I did 6 by 6, but I'm going to cut that down. And then I'm just going to position it, I don't know, here. And then I'll cut it down to what I want later. Pick that up. And then we're going to start coloring, and let's cross our fingers. So I'm going to start, I think, with the vines. And I'm going to use, I'm not sure, I don't think I used these last time. I might have just used watercolor paints, but I'm going to try these. So these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Markers. I have a hard time with that one. Starting with the mid-tone brown, and I'm just going to color in all the stems on the stamp. Just coloring the stems, stamping it on there, no water, just straight to paper for this part. What's great about having the MISTI is you can just do a little at a time and go back and see how it's going. Now you can see on the back of the stamp, I'm not sure if you can or not, but right here there's more that comes through. I'm going to add that last because when I go to do the leaves, that's just going to bleed out into the rest of the leaf. So I'm not going to bother with that now. I'll draw these in after. To color the berries, I have 2 shades of red. I start with the lighter color, carmine red, and ink up the berry, stamp that on there on the paper, and then I'm using a water brush to pull that color out. I'm going to do this for all of the berries, and when it's dry, I'm going to go back in with a darker red and then do it again. Right. Now here's a little trick. If you angle this, when it's laying down flat, it's kind of hard to see, but if you angle it a little bit, you can see it a bit better. So there's one here, and one in this area. So let's try the darker one now. And I just used the brush to soften out the edges, but I still want it dark around the top of the berry. So I'm not pulling all the color down. Like here you can see a nice dark line. Let's see. I'm not sure here, but if you can see, like there's some dark brown lines. They look brown, but it's the wine red. And you built it up with a couple of layers. It kind of gives it a nice dark edge. Okay, so we're going with mid green, olive green, and deep green. So I'm going to start with the mid green. Just brush it on. It doesn't have to be all perfect and smooth when you're putting it on here because you're going to move it around with the brush. So let's do this first one. See that? Okay, so now coming in with my brush, I can move the color. I'm going to go back in and add another layer over top because I love the detail that comes in there. See, and I've brushed it all away now, but you see what I mean there about moving the color around? and I've left right along the edges. I haven't touched it, so that gives it that hard edge. Let's try that and see what it looks like. Okay, I like that. There's a couple different shadows going on in there. I'm gonna leave that alone to dry before I do any other colors on top of it. So this first layer is pretty basic. When you look at the stamp, you can see there's some darker edges. They even got some blue and purple in there, but it's darker. I'm going to add those in after I get my base layer of color down. Okay, so this one here, right here, there's a stem that comes all the way down. So as I do this one, I can see, if I lift it up, I can see it. So I'm going to try to keep that area kind of clear, free of the green ink. And that way when I go to add the brown afterwards, it won't get all muddled up. See, now I've touched the red there. Now to stop that from bleeding in, I'm just going to dab it and move some more green up there. It's watercolor. Now the thing is, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a crisp leaf and a crisp, you know, berry and stuff, because it's watercolor. Colors run. They meet water, right? So that's okay. I'm okay with that. Okay, so now I'm going to add in some olive green. I'm going to try to stick to the darker areas. I'm going to use this as my guide here. So on this side here, that's the thing too, it's backwards, right? So when it's flipped over, it's on the left side, but on this side, it's on the right. So you're going to bring your darker color in here. And let's just blend it out there. Okay, so then the other way to do it, same way we did with the berries. Okay, I just want a little bit in through here. I can pull that down and use the water brush to spread that color out. Okay, so I'm liking this. I'm liking this. All right, so now I want to see all the little stem bits. I don't know what they're called, cherry or berry tips things. I'm going to do that in a dark brown. So look at the difference how it looks like without them and then adding them in. It kind of gives it more of a definition, definitely, of what it is, you know, like it's not just red blobs. Kind of, oh wait, they're berries. So I missed part of the leaf right here, so I'm just going to go back in with my mid green and add that back in. See how I have these brown veins kind of thing, a light in the leaves here? I'm gonna do that. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with this one. Now, comes the fun part. I'm gonna freehand some of this. These brushes are nice too because you can go, look at this, you can go like big, or you can just go really, really faint. Why is it I'm whispering when I do it really faint? See how thin that is versus how thick? And that's all with this brush. Love it. Okay, so let's just add a little bit more detail. Okay, so I'm going to take this one now. This is it's got a bit more green to it. It's called Deep Green. So just a tiny, tiny bit along the edge. And then I'm just going to pull that out. I'm just drying it off in between so I don't have too much color on there. I want the very little water, more like a dry brush, just very, very little, and pulling it out when it seems to get a little too much. Dry it off, go back in, and pull it out. All right, so I gave this lots of drying time, and now we're going to do the gray in the background that you see on the original card. And this is really simple. Like, you could use a bigger brush, but because I've got all those little areas in the middle, I'm going to use one that's got a bit of finer point. And I'm using an aqua brush, but if you want, you could just use a paintbrush and some water. So basically, I'm just going to whip through this. I'm not going to spend much time on it. I start with the light. I use 2 grays. I start with the lighter one, add some color around the edge, pull that out with a water brush. Go around all the edges of everything in your image. And then once that's done, get your darker gray and go back in right up against all the edges again, but don't pull it out quite as far as you did the lighter gray. And you just keep doing this until you're happy with what you see. And that's it. Okay, so now I'm switching to the darker gray, the gray-green, and now I'm going to focus in the center of the image and around the edges and just not pull it out as far as I did the lighter green, just so that it's darker closer to the image. So to finish the card off, I stamped, first off I die cut it out with the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, and then I stamped the sentiment with black ink. I stamped it a couple of times using the stamp positioning tool so get a good crisp image. Thanks for sticking around, you guys. I know it was a long video. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If not, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you know when there's be more videos coming out. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.